Hello again, my name is Dr. Bill Johnson, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Exploring Our Schools. You know what? And I can't hear you. Wait, hang on one second. Let me see if I can go ahead. Now, you're clear now. Yeah, okay. No, that was my fault. We didn't know that you were ready to start. I couldn't hear anything. No music, no nothing. Nothing, I couldn't hear anything. No, well, you know what? Why don't we just go with what we have? We're doing fine.
I did.
No, he does. He did the countdown fine. That's how I actually knew that we were ready to begin. Right. Okay, we're on our... Hello again, my name is Dr. Bill Johnson. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Exploring Our Schools. Today we're going to focus on a really very important topic, not just for the Rockville Centre Public Schools, but for the state of New York. As many of you know, the Common Core has been introduced. It started in 2010 and has in recent years come under a great deal of criticism. One of the focal points of that discussion has been math. We have prided ourselves here at Southside High School and in the Rockville Centre Schools of preparing our kids well for college. And I think at the heart of the discussion and at the heart of the problem is whether or not the Common Core actually is consistently enabling us to continue with that mission. And so what I've done is asked a number of people who really are more expert than I am on the subject to join me today and really talk a little bit about our math program here at Southside High School and at Southside Middle School, just to allow you the opportunity to kind of walk into a window of what is really the opportunity that your children have of not only understanding math, but being very well prepared for college. So let me start, first of all, with introducing John Murphy, who is our high school principal, Mary Coleman, who is a high school math teacher, and Lisa Seleka, who is a middle school math teacher. So, John, let me just talk. You heard my introduction. Where are we with math? I guess we've heard lots about college and career ready, and that's what the Common Core was all about, getting kids college and career ready.
As are we. College and career ready is subject to interpretation. Our interpretation has always been to give students, with regard to math, the math skills and the math literacy they need for life after Southside High School.
Just not our interpretation. We've done something more than that. We've actually had discussions with colleges and universities. We talk to kids when they come back. So we've learned from colleges. They've told us what kids need. We've learned from kids. They've told us what they need.
As well as our own surveys looking at students who leave after 4 and 5 years. Not just their college completion rate, which is extremely high, but also the career decisions that they have at their disposal, having started here and developed those math skills that they really need, as well as other competencies. What we do works.
But works in the sense that, and you said something very important there, which is kids graduate in 4 and 5 years if in fact, what?
If in fact they take credit-bearing courses once they start college immediately. The goal for college and career readiness is to get the students into at least pre-calculus if they can before they
Does that
graduate.
help?
Inordinately so. There's an inordinate amount of research, not just from Southside High School, but abroad, that if a student gets to pre-calculus level, but even more importantly, AP Calculus or statistics, their chances of completing college in 4 years increases exponentially.
Okay. So our kids who finish Southside, we try to get them exposed to calculus before, or statistics. We'll talk about that in just a minute, what those courses are like, in order to enable them to finish in 4 or 5 years.
Correct.
And that happens.
It does. They're also more educated and informed consumers when they go to college. They're not intimidated by that math course. They know what involves problem solving on a mathematical level, so they're making more informed decisions in the courses that they are taking.
You know, it's a huge national problem, and only 1 out of 3, you know, it blows me away when I hear it. Only 1 out of 3 kids finish college in 4 or 5 years, and only about 1 in 2 actually finish. I mean, it's scary when you consider the investment that parents and families make in getting their kids ready for college, in school districts getting them ready. And then, are they really ready? And I think math plays a really critical role in that. So, maybe Mary, look, you've been at this for a long time. You've taught the Regents courses, you've taught calculus, so maybe just talk a little bit about getting kids ready and their sense of themselves when they finish with us.
Well, I think allowing students to go beyond an Algebra 2 into our IB program in math, which I think is a wonderful program to help students learn how to think through problems, problem solve. It teaches them skills that are beyond the rote of perhaps a Regents style question, where they have to understand. So allowing students to explore mathematics in a different way. They also get to write a mathematical paper where they can explore a topic in math that's of interest. That experience, as well as being able to take an AP Calculus or AP Statistics course, prepares them so much more than students get prepared in other schools. I don't know that Rockville Center students understand, but I taught for years in New Jersey, and only the top of the top of the top took BC Calculus, and only the top were allowed to take AP Calculus AB, the 1-semester calc course. In this district, students are exposed to that level of mathematics that they would not see until college. And it allows the students, when they go to college, to actually take a step back and breathe a little, because it's not all new. They've seen it, they've experienced it, they've solved problems. It's incredible. You know, coming from other places, I see the difference. I don't know that people who live here understand how different it is.
You're right, because they only live here. They're not living in 2 places. But, I mean, they can talk to relatives and friends elsewhere. It is different. I'm going to get to one of those major differences, which is what we do in algebra in 8th grade. But you said something very, very important and I think very intriguing, which you don't always hear, and that is the word exposure. Mm-hmm. You know, there was research that was done a number of years ago by a guy named Cliff Edelman out at ACT, who said it is exposure to this high-level curriculum before they leave that is a critical component in them completing college and doing well in college. And you essentially reaffirmed that again.
It's not always the success. It is the exposure. I believe that we, as human beings, can achieve excellence when we see what excellence is. And so if you're...
Even if they struggle.
Exactly. And without a doubt, even the struggling student, somebody who got a C, maybe even a D in calculus in high school, goes off to college and they come back time after time saying, I'm so glad I took that. Because
sounds just like them, as a matter of fact.
they still had a leg up on almost all their classmates in that class because they had seen it before, and our brain has something to connect to. Mm-hmm. If you haven't been exposed, you can't make those connections.
My only caveat with that I agree. Exposure has to be coupled with achievement
Yes.
and conviction, that the student has to finish the course with a sense of conviction and a knowledge base that they're aware of. In other words, just throwing content doesn't work.
But what we also
Well,
combine
there's an
with that-
expectation they're going to complete the course, and that they're going to make an effort to work diligently through that course and try to finish it and do well in the
Correct,
test.
and the content, and the curriculum is built based on the student's prior achievement, based on what we know the sequence from 8th grade on is, so that we can sequence it based on their successes, and not just an off-the-shelf canned curriculum.
You know what, let me just kind of jump in there, because you used the word, another one of those words, exposure. The other is sequence. Now, it's very interesting that the sequence that we have here in Rockville Center starts actually in the middle school. So that, you know, when we took a look years ago at sequencing and realized that when we had algebra in 9th grade, it really created a problem in getting through an exposure to a higher level curriculum. So the decision in the 1990s was to push back algebra into the 8th grade. Tell me a little bit about that experience, the math experience for kids in the middle school.
So that started before I even started. I'm here 17 years, and I think the year before, or 2 years before, was Algebra for All. And we've had great success over the years. I think before the Common Core, we had about 98% passing rate in the middle school, which is a sprinkling of kids repeating in the summer. And I think a few years back, there was 1 or 2 kids who were not successful by the end of August. So they're starting at the high school with geometry, and many of those kids did go on to calculus and BC and things of that nature.
So the sequence in New York State and the sequence here at Southside, which has adopted the New York State curriculum, is algebra, or whatever name it goes by this year, and we've had many.
Flavor.
And I know many people in New York who have gone through, they've had sequential 1, they've had sequential 2,
Math A.
Math A, Math B. Well, now we're into integrated algebra, integrated geometry.
Well, now it's just
No, now it's-
algebra.
now
It used
it's
to be
Oh,
Common
it's
Core.
algebra,
Right.
That was the middle step.
okay, algebra,
Right. Geometry.
geometry,
And
Algebra
and
Algebra
algebra 2,
Common Core,
Common Core. So, followed by,
IB.
so that if we finish that sequence in their sophomore year, what happens in junior and senior year? You kind of put it all together before, but it's worthwhile saying it in terms of the sequence.
Right.
Sequence in their junior year is,
IB Math,
Right.
either IB Math Studies or IB Math SL. The IB Math SL is a more challenging course. It's for the student who has a real passion for math and sciences typically. The IB Math Studies is a good comprehensive course of mathematics with statistics, more statistics sprinkled in it than the IB Math SL. And then that is followed by AP Statistics or AP Calculus A, B, or BC.
AP meaning advanced
Advanced
placement,
placement.
so just
Yes.
everybody understands that, okay. And these are not courses that are necessarily just ours.
Right.
We align them to what
The
is
AP
considered to be
curriculum.
at college level preparation, right?
Yes,
Which
and they
is the advanced
take,
placement.
they take the advanced placement exam at the end of the year, and depending on how they score on it, they can obtain college credits
Right,
for their scores.
okay. So that's the sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to the middle school, and really the combination of the two. You know, New York State has done a reevaluation of the Common Core and has made a decision to focus a good deal of its attention on math, particularly math at the high school level. And it's kind of commonly understood that the Common Core sequence did not align itself well with our goals, which is to get kids into calculus or adequately prepared for calculus by the time they reach their senior year. So I think that's going to be rewritten. I don't know how you feel about that, but
Well,
What's going on? Do you-
Relieved. I mean,
Yeah.
when I first looked at what the Common Core was expecting or doing in New York State, the expectation was, or what I understood it to be, was that 9th graders take Algebra 1, and 10th graders take geometry, and 11th graders Algebra 2, and they had a pre-calculus. Well, that's not going to work here because we've had a very successful sequence. And there was actually a push at some time for them, for the state to say, we want 9th grade to take Algebra 1. So them reevaluating it and other districts kind of pushing back at the state, 8th grade Algebra 1 has been successful and others have followed and adopted it. And so there has to be a sequence of mathematics that's allowing students to get to calculus by their senior year. There has to be, because we know it helps prepare them for college and for life ahead.
So what happened? Somebody didn't do their homework, I guess? I mean,
I think they looked at the courses in a vacuum. I even caught myself saying, life didn't start in 8th grade. The math sequence goes back.
Sure.
You collaborated with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Absolutely.
And the notion of challenge, difficulty, and preparedness started to be used as synonyms.
Right.
Just because the test is harder doesn't mean necessarily prepares a student better for what goes on. And we started to see things like this, such as discrepancies between a student's prior achievement and their math score. There should at least be a correlation, right? A correlation coefficient that is fairly positive towards
And there
one.
had been in prior years.
And there had been, but there wasn't. If you
Right.
couldn't make heads or tails of it, a student could get 75, could have been a great student, could have been a mediocre student. There wasn't any heads or tails. We had students early in their 9th grade, 13 years old, no longer identifying as a math student. That, to me, says volumes more than any test result. I'm not good in math. How crippling is that as they're moving forward? As well as the other details that we talked about, topics being misaligned. So I just think it was too compartmentalized.
You know, and last year, for the first time ever in my 17 years of teaching Regents courses, we had about 10 criers during the test because they were so overwhelmed at the level of difficulty and the wording of the questions. You know, when you're asked to graph a parabola, why make it the most difficult numbers possible that a kid has to scroll through a calculator to 100 values before they get to the one that they need? Is that proving knowledge or endurance? You know, I don't know sometimes what's being tested.
Or in a
you know,
multi-step.
people didn't realize that kids, that must be
And we were
awful
upset.
for
We
you.
were
I
just
mean,
upset.
think about
We were
it.
so
I mean,
Right.
upset.
You had I heard it was somewhere in the vicinity of a dozen kids last year.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
just sat down and started to cry.
yeah.
I mean, what is that doing? What's going on
It was
inside of that
awful.
child?
It was an awful experience, and all year they were finding success, and we definitely changed our curriculum and upped our questioning and things to meet the Common Core, and we did all the practice exams, and then you get questions where a 13-year-old just doesn't have that ability in most cases to think that far outside the box at that age. I think that's what we develop over years, but by 13, that's not developed yet.
Look at the exam holistically and ask yourself one of two questions. Is this exam designed to find out what students know or to find out what they don't know? For instance, in a multi-step problem, when you're giving credit for the multiple steps, if the hardest part of the question is the first step, what are you trying to find out? There's a message there,
Right.
right? So the kid can't get the credits for the second and third step because you've already shut them down. A scaffolded question is...
Cognitively, is what you're saying.
Right, cognitively and emotionally.
Yeah.
So there's a thought process that lets the student get warmed up. At least show me how much of this you know.
Right.
And
Before you get to the challenge, then do the multi.
Right.
You're nodding.
And in IB questions, you know, you see that. They absolutely scaffold. The first, part A, will be an easier question, and then it builds and builds, and by the time you get to part E, that is the challenge question. That is the part where you really need to delve deeper. What I see in Regents questions are tricks. They will put every
Absolutely.
incorrect possible answer a student can get on a multiple choice question, and it is there. If you made a calculator error, a common error, it's there. If you make another process error, that's common, the answer's there. So the kids get a false sense of security. Oh, my answer's there, I must be right. And they're wrong. And they don't, and you know, and it gets frustrating as a teacher to have to train students on how to check that, use the, you know, tricks. How do you check that work? When that's not understanding, that's trickery. So whenever you see an SAT question, they don't put all the wrong answers there. Unless they do now. I haven't seen the newest
No.
test as much,
No.
but you know, it's not a trick, and I always feel that the Regents questions are tricky, and that's not testing understanding.
All right. So look, I'm hoping it's fixable. there are two things that I really wanted to focus on. One, we are committed to getting kids college and career ready. We are truly committed to getting them, as many kids as we can, into calculus or statistics, because we already know in advance. It starts with the work at the middle school. It's sequenced into a series of things that we provide at the high school in order to enable these kids to be adequately prepared when they go off to college and finish on time. So we're committed. I just hope that the state is with us, not just with us in Rockville Center, but with, I mean, we're not alone in this.
Right.
For the state to be making changes means that they've heard from numerous other school districts statewide. So I suspect that people like yourselves have gone to the state and let them know that there's a problem. So, is it fixable, Common Core?
Oh, I think it is. I mean, I think there are some good parts of Common Core in their attempt in some of the questioning for understanding, not just kill and drill. So there are some good components to it. I think the order, say, for example, in Algebra 1, some of the topics that are now new in Algebra 1 are beyond the abstraction ability of a student at that age. It's too abstract. And then that's what causes frustration. And the last thing we want are a whole bunch of students who hate math because it was so
Right.
frustrating, because it was introduced before they are ready for a topic.
So-
And that can be fixed. It's a reordering. Math hasn't changed. Algebra, if you look at the continuum, nothing's really different from what you learned and from what I learned in high school and college. It's the order. It's how they present it, and it is how it is tested.
I'm saying it's the level of the questioning
Yeah.
also.
Right. It becomes a reading exam now. It's not a math test. It
Right.
is a reading test.
So I'm going to leave it on that note. We're just about done.
Okay.
There's hope, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. I mean,
Yes,
look,
Absolutely.
if we considered a table like this, dissect both the exam and the coursework and understand, I'm hoping that others who will sit in a room up in Albany will be able to do much the same thing and come out with something that's worthwhile and aligns itself with what we know is a pathway that's going to get kids college and career ready. So on that note, I thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very enlightening. John, as always a pleasure.
Likewise.
So, thank you all for joining us. I hope we've kind of taken what is a very complicated problem for us to work on and for the state to work on, made it a little bit simpler to understand, and understand also that we are committed to the quality experience that you've been accustomed to in the past and that we're going to continue on that path for your children. So, thanks again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.